Swear to God, my grandkid has been nothing but trouble lately. Stand your ground!
Hi there, everyone. Lars and Scott back for another review and analysis of Dandadan. This time looking at episode 3. And this is brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure. It's more fun with friends.
We're back to talk about Dandadan.
Oh, this is such a fun episode. Such a good episode from beginning to end.
And like the first 2 episodes, it's nonstop action and drama and like goofiness. And it continues a lot of that into the 3rd episode. But this 3rd episode, we understand more about the world now because of this 3rd episode than we did in the first 2. The first 2 is just like, oh, aliens and ghosts and all that kind of stuff exist and they can kill you. But then it sets some hard rules, and this is how we fight it back against them.
And also, we needed those 2 episodes, of course, to kind of set the stage for what's happening to these 2 characters, for us to get to know Momo and Okarun, and as well to establish their relationship, which is what episode 2 is really primarily focused on. And episode 3 is like, okay, now that you know all of that, let's grab you and hurl you off of the next cliff, and it's time to start. It's time to fly. Because we're not waiting at all to deal with Turbo Granny.
Yeah. Well, and I think an important thing here is because we were talking about like just the pace that the story set so far, that I don't feel like the 3rd episode slowed that down at all. In fact, it accelerated it. Like it helped us learn a lot of things. And so it's a very exposition heavy episode, but like we learned some of the gravity of what's going on, especially to Okarun with the Turbo Granny curse. And because of that, they're like, oh crap, now we have to fight the Turbo Granny without the time to actually prepare. And we kind of just have to go in with whatever we have available.
Yeah, the training arc, gone. The training arc lasted a grand total of maybe 2 minutes. Without even making it a montage.
I really like that it's not an actual montage though. Like you would expect it to be a montage just because it's so common in anime and in cartoons, have some sort of music playing in the background as they're fighting fake foes and figure out how to master their powers. We don't get that. They get a day to kind of figure out what's going on, and then they have to go fight the Turbo Granny, or else Okarun's going to become Typhoid Mary, basically.
Yeah. So let's quickly just do a recap real quick of the events of this episode, because there's some people like, I came here for the review. What's going on? So with this episode, we actually open up with Momo's grandma doing a little psychic fortune telling thing on television, all dressed up and everything. So you actually don't get to see her until she's on her way on home, and people think that all of her insights are absolute bunk. But then the moment that we actually get to see her, she's not some weird decrepit hag like what was first presented to us. She's like a really attractive woman, and immediately you realize that she's all business, and she takes Turbo Granny to task. So much so that you actually think she's killed Okarun until Momo wakes up and is like, what did you do to my friend? And she's all like, oh, he's in the shrine, go check him on out. And he appears absolutely fine. The problem is that once he leaves the shrine, Turbo Granny has full control unless Momo's there to try to like block her off with her psychic abilities, which is then what leads to, okay, then in order to remove the curse, you have to go to the tunnel and you have to beat Turbo Granny in a ridiculous game of tag, which is why we shall now begin the training montage, which ends in a poop joke because Okarun is weak and he's got to go to the bathroom and he's missing his dong. And while in the bathroom, Turbo Granny appears. and is all like, I will kill him unless you come tonight and face me tonight. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this.
Which like accelerates the story so quickly. But I love how, and this is just something I caught, just a quick Japanese lesson to all of our listeners. I think the translators, especially where I watched it on Crunchyroll, they did a fantastic job. They were really trying to express that Okarun really need to go to the bathroom and he's about to poop his pants or pee his pants, whatnot. And it said a lot of peeing his pants. Thing is, he doesn't have a weenie, so he ain't gonna be peeing his pants.
Mm-hmm.
But two, like just the Japanese lesson, Japanese has an actual verb for pooping your pants, for like pooping or peeing your pants. So the word is morasu. And he was saying it just constantly, and it had me laughing so hard. And I'm like, this is a show for like teenagers and above. There's some serious stuff going on. Life and death is on the line. And we're having kindergarten humor here with all of the poop and pee jokes and all that. But like it was a good tension breaker for a lot of the like crazy deep stuff going on as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, and you need that levity. Like
Mhm.
and we brought this up before, that one of the reasons why Dandadan is able to get away with some of the stuff that it's doing is because of how it approaches it. And humor is necessary to balance out horror. This is
Yeah.
something that way too many people who are attempting to write horror kind of forget, that you need those moments of levity, you need those moments of lightness, even a poop joke sometimes. Because otherwise, if you just pull that string way too taut and it's just tension, 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 eventually it breaks. And if it breaks before you reveal the monster or the crazy twist or what have you, the audience isn't coming back.
Well, and on the flip side of that, you're able to create a whiplash situation with like that gap between the like silliness of the poop joke and then what happens in the bathroom. Momo and her grandma start having blood coming out of their noses and ears and all that kind of stuff. And they realize very quickly they don't have time to like train up for stuff. They have to like get to where the Turbo Granny is in order to try and beat her somehow. And that gap, that like flip from one thing to another, just completely like wakes you up. It shocks you awake and really zeroes you into like the drama that's going on with the characters.
And one of the things I enjoyed about this scene is that while it might seem like it completely counters everything in terms of world building beforehand, it not really, because Grandma has already talked about how powerful Turbo Granny is. She's more powerful
Mhm.
than she should be, and the fact that she's running around in Okarun is a huge problem, because even though she's outside of her domain and that kind of makes her weak, there's that other entity that she's merged with, which is even more powerful and can screw around with things. Grandma is only as powerful as the god of that particular region allows her to be, and if she comes prepared with barriers. With barriers,
Mhm.
she can beat up Turbo Granny in her own home field. But without that, then there's problems. And if there's any issue with borders or with power levels, then even in the middle of the shrine area, a very, very powerful malevolent ghost can start bending the rules and doing things such as like stopping time, hurting people, ultimate possession. And
Mhm.
that's what we're getting right here, which helps to reinforce just how dangerous this upcoming game of tag is going to be.
Yep. I I do really want everybody to focus on that battle between the grannies towards the start of the episode, because like from reading the manga, there's so much foreshadowing in just that little tiny battle. Like it leads into like some of the more serious like solutions for the upcoming battle. And you just got to pay attention to what Momo's grandma says, and you'll be able to figure out how stuff's going to work out later. It it may not, and Momo's grandma definitely downplays her um like her powers and her abilities in this kind of sense. But honestly, that's what saves him later on. Like that foreshadowing. And like as a writer, I think it's brilliant because so many people are like, oh yeah, foreshadowing is great. You should really throw in some foreshadowing for what's going to happen at the end, at the start of the book, and all that kind of stuff. No, you could foreshadow for the next chapter, for the next few chapters.
Mhm.
Like there's no amount of distance between what happens, what like your foreshadow, and then when stuff actually happens. It could be one episode the next, and that's what it's going to be in this case, or 2 episodes. I can see the whole chase with the Turbo Granny lasting 2 episodes, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And on the subject of foreshadowing, like I love it when foreshadowing isn't in your face. Like,
Yes.
this is gonna be important later. Like what grandma is saying, it just seems like good world building, and you don't realize that it could be very important later on for some really neat twist. And a good comparison is the 3rd episode of The Amazing Digital Circus. It opens up with the characters having a joking moment where they're holding their breath, and you don't realize just how important them holding their breath and just playing around is going to be later on down the episode. Like it makes no sense until you see the end of the episode. You're like, oh my gosh, that was so well set up. Like nothing had to come out of left field to justify the crazy twist and solution at the end, because it had already been set up and you didn't even realize it.
Right.
That is when foreshadowing is good. And that's, I think, probably one of the hardest parts to get right when it comes to foreshadowing.
I think a big thing with Momo's Granny is, I mean, I know she's fulfilling a trope. Like she's the like wise old mentor trope. Like you see it in like Gandalf and Dumbledore. They're known for being the epitome of that kind of trope. But the Granny, like those characters, you really have to pay attention to like what they do, what they say, because they have a broader effect than you initially think usually. But I love how the Granny goes from like this serious, like kick butt character to this goofy old granny who like likes to goof off and is honestly messing with them when it comes to like the whole poop joke scene. And like she's a brilliantly written character, and she's exactly what we needed for this 3rd episode.
And one of the things I really like about how she's utilized as a character is because, yes, she's incredibly attractive, but as opposed to most other anime out there, where then it's like, oh, we've introduced the attractive mom or the attractive grandma, and then there's like a competition between the older woman and all the younger girls, like, look at this mature lady, boys, don't you want to taste? Instead of that, like, yes, she's gorgeous, but there's no obvious flaunting of that sexiness. Instead, she's very much like, hey boy, you're gonna treat my granddaughter right. Oh, also, what she just said right here, she's totally crushing on you, and she's messing around with them. Then she's not being like, hey boy, get a look at this. No, she's very much my like, you're gonna respect my granddaughter, but I'm also gonna tease my granddaughter. You're cursed. Let's see what we can do about this. She's funny, and there's no ridiculous usage of cleavage or butt to help move the plot along. Nothing ridiculous, like what you normally tend to expect when you suddenly pull out a character like this. And that's refreshing. I know there's going to be those people who are going to be like, well, did you have to draw her all curvy? That's kind of the point, because you weren't expecting it. Again, Dandadan is there to kind of shock you with like, I did not see that coming. And so it's shocking you about like, here's the sexy grandma, but now that you've seen the sexy grandma, you think you know what's happening, but oh no, you're getting a serious mentor figure.
Which is exactly what they need at the moment, because they are so out of their depth, and they need to be like grounded in like the reality of the situation a little more. And she knows this stuff. Like she's very in-depth involved with a lot of this stuff. So she's able to like ground them and help them get their footing, so they've got a place to launch off from.
And also not just for them, but also for us as the audience. Like her fight at the beginning against Turbo Granny, to come back to that, is fantastically executed. Have you read the book Arithmetist? by Brandon Sanderson?
I haven't, no.
I would highly recommend to you and to anyone else who wants to read a story that's going to be like, wait, what? Read Rhythmatist, because it is about fighting monsters with drawings.
Okay.
And so you have these people, like they have to know basic math, and they have to draw really well in order to create barriers and weapons and monsters that can fight other monsters. And if you don't know how to draw, you are screwed. And so as you're reading this book, you're like whoa, like you're trying to imagine like what it looks like, and then Sanderson actually provides some images, and some of the images are like really, really simple. And you're like, really, do I need this? You're like, yes, you do. And what Granny actually does with the double circle on Turbo Granny is something similar done in Rhythmatist, where it's like extra circles, you're not going anywhere. And it's a cool little moment, and what makes it even better, like with how the draw, like it's not her beating up Turbo Granny with her bat, while that's very cathartic to watch. It is when she steps into the circle, Turbo Granny pushes back and starts burning, and she's like, I'm gonna kill you, you old hag. And then she's like, bet, and erases part of the circle. And obliterates Turbo Granny in that moment. So you're just like, oh, and it's cool, and there's almost no flashiness.
Yeah.
It is all just tactics and simple stuff. And that's actually good. That's good action.
Yeah. I didn't think about it until a little bit later, but like Momo's grandma's initial move into that fight to knock Turbo Granny away from her granddaughter, she throws a block of wood at her. And I'm like, why throw the block of wood at her and then like hit it with a nail? There's a barrier on the piece of wood, and the barrier activates when the nail hits. So she's getting hit by a little portable barrier in that initial entry into the scene. And then she gets into the whole thing with like drawing the circles. She's safe. Turbo Granny falls into her trap. Like there's some serious smart thinking going in here.
I mean, when we get into those kinds of realms, there's going to be people who are going to immediately start comparing it to Jujutsu Kaisen, which goes all out with like the special spells and whatnot that the sorcerers can use. But I really like this because of how pared down it is. This is a grandma who's up against a seriously horrifying monster, and she even knows who Turbo Granny is. So she knows what she's up against, and she is calm and collected because she has to be. She's protecting her granddaughter, and she's also trying to protect a random stranger who's been possessed while taking on Turbo Granny. And when you come to understand all of that throughout the length of the episode, it just reinforces how incredible this opening fight is. It's not flashy, but it is intense, and it's so well executed.
I agree.
See, this is what I like to see. Like Sumo Alien was fun and all, but you're missing. But like this episode gives us all of the context. The previous episode was the setup for this showdown. This episode gives us then the remaining context for it, and then plays through it brilliantly. And the consequences are immediate and severe, setting up the next episode. That's good action.
Yep, that's really good action. Such a good episode, and I'm looking forward to the next one. The next one's gonna be right up there with that first episode. I mean, the fast pace, the action, the craziness. Like, we're gonna have all of that stuff that happened in the first episode come right back at us.
I don't know if you've seen the preview for the next episode yet. I caught it, and I kudos to the studio. It looks cinematic. What they showed of the fight, I was like, holy cow. Holy cow, this is gorgeous and so fluid. Like, is Saru a new studio on the block, or have they been around for a while?
Science Saru, they've done a lot of films, actually, from what it looks like full-on anime films. They did Devilman Crybaby, Ride Your Wave, Flew Over the Wall. They were involved in Adventure Time.
Ooh. Oh, I think I know which episodes they did Adventure Time. Whoa. That explains a lot.
Keep your hands off Azokin. Ino was fantastic. I love that film. Colors Within, Gardens of Remembrance, those coming out this year. Dandadan. They're gonna make the Sonda anime that's written by the author of Beastars, like the Santa one.
Really?
Yeah, they're gonna make an anime for that.
That's gonna be insane.
They're also making, from what it sounds like, Ghost in the Shell addition to that series.
Wow.
So
yeah, Science Star has been doing well with this, and that makes sense now. If they've got animators who've been working on like serious high quality movies, then that it shows. The talent shows here in these episodes, and especially looking forward to episode 4.
Yeah.
Like this is incredible. So not only is it great writing, but we're also just getting fantastic animation quality. Like Dandadan really has it all. Like this is if it wasn't that Re:Zero season 3 was releasing at the same time, I mean, Dandadan would probably be the contender for anime of the season, as well as in the contention for anime of the year. Just based off of how strong it's coming out of the gates with the first 3 episodes. All right. Any last things that we want to say about Dandadan episode 3?
No, I'm all good.
All right. So this has been us largely gushing about it, but hopefully you've also learned something, at least as far as horror goes. Don't drag out the tension too long. Have some levity, have some jokes, have some lights happening on in there. Foreshadowing is good. You don't have to worry about foreshadowing to the very end of the story. You can foreshadow to the end of the chapter, or to the next chapter, or some chapters beyond. The hardest thing is making it so that it's not completely in the audience's face. And the best way of really doing that, in my opinion, is just making it a part of the story. Just simple conversations that characters have, a neat little thing that a character reveals at one point or learns at one point, but it doesn't like become the ultimate focus of that scene. Instead, it's a part of something else, or we're quickly moving on to the next thing. Those little nuggets and breadcrumb trails serve wonderfully to the audience, because when they're like, wait a second, I know I came across that. I either watched it or I read it, and then they go back and then they enjoy your story all over again, trying to make sense of what they just saw. And that's good. That's actually something that you want people to do. So Dandadan definitely did that. And also it's totally like trope wise, this episode brings out so many tropes that we've seen before, but does something unique with them. It doesn't go out of its way to like break them or subvert them, but rather it's just like, here's the trope, and now we're going to go do something else. And it does it, and that's another problem with too many novice authors, is that they're like, I am going to twist this trope. Everyone notice what I'm doing? It's way more impactful when you're just like, here's the trope, now we're moving on, and I'm going to do something very different. And it doesn't call attention to the fact that you're doing it.
Yes, I think that's a big part of it.
So that is the writing advice that I can give based on this fantastic episode. And if you've watched this video all the way through and you have not yet seen Dandadan, what are you doing? Hop onto Crunchyroll or onto Netflix and watch this bad boy. I think it's even on Hulu, which is surprising. Like it hit 3 different companies.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So yeah, this is a good one to watch. But if you're looking for more reviews, analyses, insights, writing advice, and the likes, then please check out our other videos here on our channel. And if you haven't yet subscribed, we would love it if you joined us on this incredible adventure that we call writing. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.
Okini.